Welcome to a Thursday edition of the Investor Guys podcast. How you doing there, buddy Bill?
I am doing good, my brother, and you look well today. I see you got the gray and blue memo.
Yes, I did. I didn't get the pocket square, but you can't even see my pocket square.
Yeah, anyway. It's amazing how many times we end up wearing the same colors on the same day without ever having any conversation about
or just
minds.
Sometimes it'll just be like a flip
synergistic.
Yeah, we have. It's funny because we seem to have the same closet as far as jackets, blazers, suits go. I notice your shirts have more patterns than mine. Mine are usually just plain simple, but great minds think alike. I don't mind being compared to a snappy dresser like you at all.
Right back at you. What's on the agenda today?
On our last show, we talked about 3 steps that guarantee your success. If you understand these 3 steps, if you can master these 3 steps, you are guaranteed success every single time as long as you follow these 3 steps. And those were to analysis, capitalization, and execution. And on the last show, we went through what each of those were, but I thought maybe we could expand on it. So this show and our next 2 shows, let's expand on each one of those steps, okay? Because again, if somebody can master each one of these steps and understand how they work together, because they are synergetic, they can understand how they work together, then they can be successful every single time. And the 4th step that we mentioned at the end of the show, and if you haven't seen this, it's Tuesday's show. The 4th step that we mentioned was just to repeat, just like when you're in the shower, lather, rinse, repeat, lather, rinse, repeat. So step number 4 is once you've mastered this and once you've figured it out, repeat it. And we talked about how you need to have a pipeline of deals, how you have to have a pipeline of capitalization options, and how we need to make sure that we execute our 3rd step so that it is in conjunction with everything that our 2nd step and 1st step we're expecting as far as what we put together. So let's talk about that 1st step. Step 1 was analysis. Let's break down more in depth what we look at when we look at a property that goes into that analysis portion. And on Tuesday, we'll talk about capitalization. So let's talk about there's some things that are universal, okay, when it comes down to analysis. And then there's some things that go off in different directions. So we'll talk about, because we've got a whole show to do it, we'll talk about specifics that we're looking at for flips. We'll talk about specifics that we're looking at for buy and hold. But our first step in this strategy, our first thing that we're looking for is a viable property. And understanding what a viable property for our strategy is literally requires just a little bit of homework. What is it we want to do? Okay. There are a lot of people who don't want to do flips. They just don't want to put the time in. They don't want to put the effort in. I get it. There are other people that don't want to do buy and hold. They want to be hands-on. They only want to do flips. What strategy is it that is on your radar? And it could be multiple different strategies, but what strategy is on your radar? And Bill, you've mentioned this over and over and over again. We talked about it over and over and over again. What percentage of return do we have to see out of this in order to make it worth our while? Now, here's the thing. Bill and I, we talk about 40% return. We talk about 50% return, and that's what we like, all right? There are people who do it for less, okay? That's up to them. Bill tells a story about how he was just basically, I'm going to say it's bonking. Bonking is a marathon term, okay? Runners, they get to a point, or people who work out, they get to a point where they just can't go any faster, or they can't lift anymore. It's called bonking, okay? And what they have to do is they have to do with working out, it's called a negative rep, okay? So they have to actually have somebody push back and give them more resistance until their muscle memory gets past that point, okay? Bill was doing that with his flips, and he wanted to make more money. And he had to realize how much do I want to make? What is it that's worthwhile for me to be doing this, for me to continue on? And what's worthwhile for you when you start is going to be different than what's worthwhile for you in, say, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. A lot of people starting out, they'll be happy with 20%. A lot of people who've been doing this for 5 or 6 years, they realize 20% they're wasting their time. So set up your parameters. And what are some of the things that you do to set up your parameters, Bill?
Well, first of all, is that decision as to what is the dollar amount and or percentage amount, either one. And I usually do them in combo. I'm going to not take anything less than 40%. And that 40% needs to generate X. And so whatever that is. So those two components are the first thing I want to decide on. So we go back to get the analysis going. I got to know how much money I want to make in the course of the year. That leads me to breaking down how many deals I need to do. Now, how do I look at those particular deals? If I'm looking at a $60,000 profit per deal, there's no point in looking at $100,000 or $150,000 house. Not likely going to be able to make that kind of spread on if I'm looking at a flip. So no, I got to be in a higher price range. And then I want to start looking at how do I analyze that property. And if we're going to talk flips for a minute, we always want to start with what is the peak of the market for this property? What is the after repaired value? If you've been around this game more than about 4 minutes, you've heard that term ARV, after repaired value. That means in great shape, what is this house worth? Not what it looks like and what it's valued at today, but once we go in and we rehab it and get it in fabulous condition, then what is it going to be worth? So I'm always starting with that number. And that's a number that we pull up with comps. So that's the first analysis, is I want to establish what the value of the property is I'm looking at if it's in great shape. And that allows me to start working backwards. And then how do I go about analyzing what that value is? Well, I got to do that by putting together my comps. So my comparable sales, I want to be in the same subdivision if there's any way possible. I'm very judicious about when I use radius comps. I really want to stay in the same subdivision, and if possible, stay away from radius, because you can literally go from one street to the next. You can go literally across the street. You can go to the houses next door, and they're in a different subdivision, and their values are very different. So I want to make sure that I'm in the same subdivision if all possible. I'm looking at sold properties only, because that's the only thing that ultimately matters in a comp. I'm looking at like size. So it doesn't have to be exactly the same size. Appraisers use a 20% variance. So they'll go, if I've got, let's just say 1,000 square foot property, they'll take 200 feet and add it to it, and take 200 feet and take it away from it. So they'll have a spread of, on the small side, 800 feet, on the upper side, 1,200 feet. And if a property falls into that size range, it is a comparable sale from a size standpoint to the one that we're looking at. I'll also want to look at, do I have comparable structure, bed and bath? So if I've got a 2-bed, 2-bath, it's comparable to a 3-bed, 2-bath. But if I have a 1-1, that's not comparable to a 3-1 or to a 3-2. So I want to see, are my amenities, my bed and bath amenities, similar? And then I'm going to be able to establish what that primary number is, because if you start with a bad number on the front end, your number is going to be bad all the way through. So I always start with, what's this thing valued at? What's this property going to be worth in great, great shape? And that's probably got us up to break time.
Yeah, we're up on a break, but we'll be back in just a second with more on this.
Yep, let's do it.
We are back. And one of the things that Bill does, and I do, and any real estate investor who's been doing this for a while, they're familiar with the strategy that they're going to use. They're familiar with the market that they're using that strategy in. He essentially can put down an outline. He can put it down on paper, but he has it in his head because he's done it so many times. He has an outline. He's looking for a specific property in a specific area that's meeting specific requirements. Okay. That is how he is narrowing down. He's not looking at every single property that's on the MLS. Okay. He's browsing through the MLS, and there's specifics that catch his eye because they are in the market he wants to, the neighborhood he wants to be in, the subdivision, as he mentioned. They fit the criteria as far as the size, the area, the cost. Okay, because we're looking at the cost when we look at the MLS. So he's saying that's a potential, that's a potential, that's a potential. The rest I'm not going to waste my time on. I'm going to go look at this one, I'm going to look at this one, I'm going to look at this one. Then when he goes out there, he's doing things that are going to be a little more fine-tuned. He's saying, okay, this is going to need a new kitchen. That's going to cost X. I got to update the bathrooms here. It's going to cost X. This carpet from the 1960s has got to go. Okay. I got to put something in here. It's either going to be carpet or it's going to be a laminate or it's going to be a hardwood or it's going to be vinyl, whatever it is based upon what his market demands. Okay. And literally that's one of the things that we don't hear about. We hear that word market demand a lot, but we don't really talk about that. Market demand for each specific area is going to be different. So in a higher end neighborhood, you're not going to put vinyl on the floor in your kitchen or in your living room. You're going to put tile. In a more affordable income area, vinyl is perfectly fine. It's a lot more durable. Understand what your market demands as far as what you're doing. And again, you can put that blueprint, that outline together on paper, or you could put it in your head and you know what you're looking for. And that is part of our analysis process. So every single investor, no matter what your strategy is, whether it's going to be flips, whether it's going to be buy and hold, whether you're doing commercial, whether you're doing residential, you have that outline, again, either on paper or in your head. Those are the properties that you're looking for to qualify your next step. Okay. Your next step is going to be costs. All right. Whether it's the cost of repairing the property, the cost of acquiring the property, and the money cost. Now we talk about acquiring the property and money cost. Money cost, if we're financing this property, we have a cost of money every single month that we own that property because we have to make payments on it. We have to make interest payments on that. We also have insurance that we have to pay on that. And we're also responsible for the taxes on the property for that period of time when we own it. So we have to factor in those costs. Now, if we're doing a flip, we have to factor in the rehab cost. What is our total rehab budget going to be? If we're talking about acquiring this property for a buy and hold strategy, what are our month-to-month costs going to be? Do we have to pay for trash pickup in a residential or commercial property? Do we have to pay for any of the utilities ourselves? Is it that the tenants aren't going to be paying? Are we going to be paying maintenance? Are we going to have a parking lot that's going to need to be repaved every 5 years because it's blacktop, or resealed every 3 years because it's blacktop? All of these are cost factors that we now need to address specifically in our analysis. And we need to put together that analysis specific to that property, specific to the cost. Now, Bill mentioned it in the first segment. If you're using the wrong numbers, or if you're missing a number, or you put the wrong number in there, like add a number that is not correct, okay, then you've changed the entire dynamic of your analysis. So you need to understand, first of all, what the cost. I see so many people, they don't factor in maintenance, or they don't factor in insurance, or they don't factor in one simple thing that may only be a couple of $100. Yeah, it may only be a couple $100 a month, but it will change. If you have $200 a month, you're talking about $2,400 difference in a year. Over the course of 10 years, that's $24,000. That makes a difference. And again, that could be something that you factored wrong in either direction. Okay, that will change your numbers. So you need to know what you're dealing with. Make sure you have the correct numbers, actual numbers for every single cost factor, every cost variable in that particular property. And that's part of your analysis. Does it matter? Residential, commercial, agricultural, industrial, whatever it is, doesn't matter whether you're buying it to flip, doesn't matter whether you're buying it to hold, doesn't matter what your strategy is. All of these cost factors have to go into your analysis because you need to know how much money I'm putting into this. How much money am I going to need in my next step, which is capitalization? And I need to have this in a form that I can pass on to. Let's say Bill's going to be my money person. Okay. Bill may respect me and Bill may think I'm a great guy, but usually people aren't going to just take my word for it. They want to see it on paper. They want to see what backs that up. They want to see what supports that. So where did I get my numbers? Where did I get the cost of the utilities? That's based upon the past costs of the utilities. Where did I get the cost for blacktop? Where did I get the cost for each of the things that I factored into that? If we're doing flips, then it's easy enough to provide an estimate from a contractor into that package that we're going to present to the capitalization. But again, the more information we have and the more it supports us being in a profitable position, the better we have, the better chances we have of being capitalized and being able to make a profit from this. All right, Bill, I've monopolized a lot of this section. Go ahead and give us your 2 cents.
No, absolutely. I just, it is, the numbers are the one thing that people get crippled on so much. And look, it's just math. It has some flexibility in it, but if you will not be afraid of the numbers will always be your friend, because they're either going to be your friend by saying, this is a great deal, or they're going to be your friend by saying, hey, don't do this. I'm trying to tell you right now, this is going to cost you money. If you do this deal, the numbers will always be there and tell you that. So don't be afraid of the numbers. Get to know them inside out and make sure you're dealing with the right numbers. And then as I threw out in there, one of those categories that people miss on a regular basis is cost of funds. And I like to break it down to where I know what I'm paying interest-wise per day on every single property. Because every day that this property stays on the market, and it's either not rented if it's a long-term hold, or I don't have it under contract if it's a flip, every day that it stays on the market is costing me money. And you're going to be surprised when you go back and establish what the per cost per day is. Yeah, and it looks very different when you break it down per day than it does on the month. It's the same number, it just looks different. And here's the image I want you to have in your mind when you think about holding cost. So let's say my holding cost is $63.84 a day. Every day that my property is not on the market, it's just like driving down the interstate, rolling the window down and taking that $63 and just chunking it out the window. And if you will embed that image into your mind and think about cost of funds on a regular basis, it'll keep you moving forward. It'll help self-correct you when you get a little off track there.
We're up on a break, but when we get back, I want to talk about how specific numbers are. Like Bill has said it over and over again, and I've said it over, and because we know, okay? So I'm going to talk about the butterfly effect when we get back, and this will demonstrate how important it is to have the right numbers. We'll be back in just a second. And we're back. Just before we left, I said we're going to talk about the butterfly effect. Bill, you're familiar with the butterfly effect. Explain the butterfly effect. And I want you to pay, those of you out there, I want you to pay attention to how important this is, because it affects us in every single thing where we have numbers. And I hear people say all the time, well, I'm going to fudge numbers a little bit this way, or I'm going to fudge them a little bit this way. And I hate hearing that they're going to fudge numbers, because when you fudge numbers, you mess up your calculations. And over the course of a week, it may not be that big of a deal. Over the course of a month, it may not be that big of a deal, but it's going to be more. Over the course of a year, 10 years, 20 years, it's going to be even greater. Yeah. So explain to us the butterfly effect so that people who aren't familiar with it can see literally how important just decimal points can be.
Yeah. So the explanation of what the butterfly effect is it's the chaos theory of a butterfly halfway around the world flaps its wings one time, and by the time that little bit of vibration gets back around to our side of the world, it may be causing a hurricane. Because of the effect it's had rippling through time and space. So in real estate, the butterfly effect.
Well, actually, hold on. Let me go expand on that. The butterfly effect was actually supported mathematically. There was a meteorologist who was also a mathematician. Okay, he was back in the early days of computers, trying to calculate weather patterns by coming up with numerical numbers, numerical formulas for each of the different types of weather factors. Now, he had entered this information in over and over and over and over again, and he was getting the same responses back, what he expected, what he figured was going to happen. Then he entered in a whole long series of additional formulas, And he left off the 1/1000th of a decimal point on each one of these things. He just rounded it out to a flat. He didn't leave off. He left off the 1/1000th of a decimal point when he entered in each one of these formulas. When he got the printout from this, he was blown away. He's like, this is impossible. How could this at all be possible? The end result was by leaving off that 1/1000th of a decimal point. It was equivalent to a butterfly in Brazil flapping its wings and changing the weather in, say, Singapore. I mean, literally just a butterfly flapping its wings in Brazil could cause a hurricane in Singapore, could cause a tornado in Oklahoma, could cause something that just you wouldn't think about it from a butterfly flapping its wings. And this was supported mathematically, numerically, scientifically. You can't argue with numbers. They are not going to change no matter what. Okay. If a 1/1000th of a decimal point could change the weather on the other side of a globe with something so insignificant as a butterfly flapping its wings, what do you think is going to happen to our formulas if we're off $20, $100, $1,000? Over time, what is that going to look like? Bill and I have talked about the 10 times factor. Okay. If we're buying a property that we're going to keep, okay, we're valued at 10 times what our current value is. If we have shorted ourselves a number, we've shorted ourselves 10 times that amount. And every single year that we go through that, we've shorted ourselves additionally, exponentially, because that 10 times is multiplying on that negative factor each time. Okay. If we've done that with our costs, then we are now exponentially affecting our cost. And again, it could be something as simple as 1/1000th of a decimal point. And I don't tell you this to try to scare you from investing. I tell you this to make sure, and Bill's going to say the same thing, make sure you know what you're doing. Make sure you're comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges, not apples to figs and not oranges to tangerines because they look similar. Okay. You need to know exactly what you're doing because we're putting together a presentation that we're going to give to our capitalization people, but this is going to affect our profit. This is going to affect how readily we're going to do one of these other deals again. If we've screwed up exponentially, we're not going to want to do this again. It's going to scare us. So I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to point that out.
No, that's absolutely
one of my favorite stories.
Yeah. So when you start looking at that, that's why we pay so much attention to individual cost. So so many investors, let's just say you're paying hourly help on a rehab and you're paying them $35 an hour. I don't pay that much, but you're paying them $35 an hour as opposed to 30 because you want to be a nice guy. And most investors will look at that only for this particular job. But what you need to do is extrapolate that over multiple houses. And suddenly you start going, wait a minute. Now, there could be other factors that come in that might justify that pricing. That's fine. But you need to look at that. That's why we're always hammering on the cost factors, especially when you're looking at things, whether we're upgrading the property that we're going to hold as a long-term rental or whether we're upgrading the property because we're going to flip it. We are always tearing apart those costs of the individual items and finding, can I go somewhere else and procure this? And the last thing, in my opinion, you want to do on either of those is just turn it over to a contractor and go, oh, hey, well, you go take care of all that stuff and let me know how much I owe you. Because what's going to happen there is your contractor is going to make a very nice profit on the property and you're not. And it's because you're not involved in the process of that. You don't have to be out there every day. It's not what I'm talking about. You're not involved in understanding what your numbers are. So you literally can change we put ceiling fans in all of our bedrooms and in the family rooms. And in Texas, you pretty much have to keep the airflow in the summertime going, even though they're fully air conditioned. However, you can change the manufacturer or the style model that you buy, and it changes $10 or $15, and you don't think this is a little bit nicer. That's good. My people will enjoy that. Well, then you've got a 3-bedroom house, got 2 living areas. That's 5 properties or 5 fans. And if I'm paying $15 more, $10 more, it's 50 to 75 bucks more. And now suddenly I got 4 houses going on, and we never think about it in that process. And we should, because now I've spent 75 extra on this house, but I also have 4 other properties going on. So now I've spent 75 times 5 extrapolating over these other properties. And that is not even extrapolating over time. Then you start to look at, if I do this on every property over the next 10 years, look at how much this costs me. That's not saying be a slumlord or do a poor job. That's saying be cognizant of what you pay, analyze your numbers continually. When you get done with a property, go right back through your rehab budget or your upgrade budget on a buy and hold, and look at, well, I thought we were going to be able to do this for 18.5. We spent 22. Where'd that come from? And look at all those different numbers. I thought we were going to be able to do it 18.5, and we were able to do it for 17.8. Okay, now where did that savings come from? So that I can replicate that on the next property.
And Bill mentioned this before, and one of the things that escapes a lot of people, especially when they're first starting out, is your time. Okay, because you have holding costs. So the longer you have this property to rehab it or to flip it, maybe you've got it rehabbed and you're not selling it as quickly as you need to. Maybe examine your price points, whatever it is. The longer you have to hold this property, the more it costs you. Look at your time factors as well, and consider that time is money. And the other thing that I tell my clients all the time, over and over and over, is your time is worth something. If you're spending extra time on this project, then your time is worth something. Factor that in. You don't have to factor in necessarily, well, I want to make $20 an hour, I want to make $50 an hour, I want to do it. Factor in the time and the effort that you're putting into this versus, say, maybe another project that may require less time, less effort from you, but the same amount of money. So keep those things in mind. A lot of people don't factor in their own time, their own effort, their own frustration that they have to deal with in getting all of this done. And another factor of that is, how easy is it going to be for you to capitalize this project? Are you going to be talking to more people, spending more time on the phone, spending more time sending this information to more people in order to capitalize it? Maybe it's a great deal, but how much time and effort and frustration are you going to waste trying to get it capitalized versus, say, another deal that might be a slam dunk for somebody who you already know? Now, this wraps up our first show, and this is the analysis portion. The better analysis you have of a project, if you know something is a winner, okay, and it doesn't matter whether it's real estate, doesn't matter whether it's a movie or a music deal or whatever it is. If you know something is a winner and you can put that on paper and you can prove that and you can back that up and you can support that, it's going to be easier for your next step, which is capitalization, which we're going to cover on Tuesday. So now, real quick, in the background, you've got on Bill's background, 40ROI.com. Okay, we talked about 40 and 50% return on investment, 10kmonthly.net. Now, 40ROI.com. Tell us about that real quick, and I'll tell them about 10kmonthly.net and your secrets to cash.
Excellent. The 40ROI.com is the process. We do a webinar on this about how you go about creating a minimum 40% return on investment, cash on cash, deal in, deal out. And so we weave this into all of our webinars because it's crucial. Whatever your number is, this is my number, yours is actually higher than that. And then there's people that just go, there's no way you can make 40% return on investment on a regular basis. Well, there absolutely is. And we do it all the time. And that's what we teach people how to do when we do 40 ROI. So you can register for one of those by going to 40ROI.com. You can also look at 10kmonthly.net. And that is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's the process of how do I create a minimum of $10,000 in passive income on a monthly basis. So we do that at 10kmonthly.net. And the secrets to cash are all the different methods that we use to be able to fund deals. Most people think that's a pure profit-oriented thing. The profits are coming in these top two. And then we do a lot of our funding techniques in secrets to cash.
And what Bill is doing is weaving that 40 ROI and the secrets to cash into his 10K monthly net, which is his consulting program. Okay. So once you understand how to acquire properties at 40% or greater ROI, okay, he says 40%, that's his bottom line. That doesn't mean he's not finding things that are 50 and 60. That's I'm not even interested unless I'm making 40K on it, or 40%. Sorry. 40%. He weaves that into the strategies that he's using to find those properties and acquire those properties and get that 40%, so that you as an individual are using understanding those same projects and those same strategies, so that you're able to build an income of 10K a month. Now, we've said this before, and Bill knows this. If you can make 10K a month, you can make 100K a month. Okay. It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of scaling. And again, it comes back to those 3 steps that we just talked about. If you understand how to make 10K a month, okay, then you can put together your analysis, you can put together your capitalization, and you can put together your execution, so that you're making 100,000, 500,000, however much you want to do. Sky is the limit. It is up to you. The only person holding you back is yourself. Thank you for joining us. Happy investing. I'll see you soon.
Very good, my brother.
And let me know what we're going to wear on Tuesday.
You got it.
See you later. Take care.
Bye.